Hey everyone, it's Tom here with Bunny Media. I hope you're all having a fantastic day today. So you're thinking about starting an e-commerce store, or you're already selling online but you want to branch out and you're wondering, should you sell on Etsy or Shopify? Shopify and Etsy are two massive players in e-commerce, but each one has its own set of unique strengths and weaknesses that can make it the right choice or the wrong choice for your online business. So in this video, we're covering the main features you need to know about each platform, the pros and cons, pricing, and how to ultimately decide if Shopify or Etsy is right for you. Some of the factors I'm looking at include how much control store owners have over Shopify or Etsy, the pricing, how you market your store, ease of use, and the different integrations and apps you have available. So if you're wondering if Shopify or Etsy is right for you, this is absolutely the video for you, so let's get to it. Okay, so the first factor we're going to look at when comparing Shopify to Etsy is how much control you have. So how much control do store owners actually have over their Shopify store versus running an Etsy store? So I've actually spent a lot of time working on Shopify stores for clients when I worked in paid advertising, and I also ran an Etsy store back in college when I tried selling print-on-demand products. So I've kind of been on both sides of the equation here. And one of the most obvious things out of the gate is just the level of control you have with Shopify that you really don't get with Etsy. So with Shopify, you just have way more control over how your store looks and feels out of the gate because it really is your own corner of the internet. So there's dozens of free Shopify themes and lots of paid ones you can use to basically design your store to match your brand's vision. And while Shopify does have some restraints, it's honestly very easy to use for non-coders, and it lets you make your store kind of look the way you want it to look. In contrast, when you sell on Etsy, you're selling on a marketplace, so you're more of a vendor and less of an actual store owner. So this means you have really limited control over your store layout. I mean, you can change the banner or some designs around a little bit, but at the end of the day, you know when you're on an Etsy shop. Now you can pay $10 a month for Etsy Plus, which gets you some more customization options and lets you set up your own domain name. But again, at the end of the day, an Etsy shop is always gonna look like an Etsy shop. Now Etsy does kind of excel for selling vintage or handmade goods. So the feeling of being this kind of marketplace vendor isn't necessarily bad, but just keep this lack of control and design control in mind. So overall, in terms of control and how much you can actually tweak how your store looks and how it feels, Shopify is the clear winner in the Shopify versus Etsy debate. All right, so the second factor we're gonna look at is pricing. And pricing is honestly a very important factor to consider when picking an e-commerce platform because things like very expensive monthly plans or very steep transaction fees can really hurt your bottom line. And so for Shopify and Etsy, pricing and transaction fees are actually two areas where these platforms are very different. For starters, Shopify charges store owners monthly plans depending on the plan they select. So you're looking at $29 per month for Shopify Basic, which is probably what most beginner e-commerce stores are going to need. So Shopify Basic is actually very robust and it unlocks most of what Shopify has to offer. So you get your own website, you can set up your own domain, you get a free SSL certificate, you can create coupon codes for customers, customize your storefront. You know, there's a lot of different options you unlock, but you are paying $29 per month. Now with Etsy, you're not paying monthly fees unless you pay for Etsy Plus, but Etsy does charge a 20 cents listing fee for every item you sell on your store, and listings expire every 4 months. Now granted, paying 20 cents per item isn't a lot, but if you have a lot of SKUs, like you sell tons and tons of different products in your store, that can actually add up pretty quickly. However, monthly pricing aside, the main area where Shopify and Etsy differ is in transaction fees. So with Shopify, you basically have to opt into Shopify payments unless you want to get annihilated by fees. And that's going to be about 2.9% plus 30 cents for every transaction you make on your store. Now this is for Shopify Basic, and some of the more expensive Shopify plans do get slight discounts on transaction fees, but the bottom line is you're paying about 2.9% plus that 30 cents fee every time you make a sale on Shopify. Now, somehow Etsy is even more expensive than Shopify, and you actually pay 5% in transaction fees if you're not on Etsy payments. If you're in a country that's eligible for Etsy payments and you opt into Etsy payments, you can kind of get that transaction fee down to about 3 to 4%, but it depends on where your customer is shopping from. So honestly, fees are a weakness for both Shopify and Etsy, and that's why we have a video on this channel for the best Shopify alternatives that I'm going to link above, because there are much lower fee options out there for e-commerce store owners. But in terms of this Etsy versus Shopify debate, I'll say that Shopify is more expensive in the short term because you're paying for that monthly hosting plan. But in the long run, as your store scales, you're probably going to pay more with Etsy because it has higher transaction fees. So keep that trade-off in mind. All right, so the third factor we really wanted to talk about in this video is exposure. So how do you market a Shopify store and how do you market an Etsy store? So really, this is another area where both platforms are drastically different because with Shopify, like I mentioned earlier, it's your own corner of the internet. It's your own store. It's a standalone store. You can host it on your own domain. And then it's kind of up to you how you market your store. But this also means people aren't going to randomly stumble across your Shopify store from a central marketplace. So you need to use things like SEO, paid ads, social media, email marketing, or some form of content marketing to get the word out and to attract visitors to your store. Now with Etsy, the difference is you're selling on a marketplace, and the marketplace is actually very, very powerful and can get you a lot of free traffic if you know what you're doing. So way back in college, I tried selling meme mugs on Etsy. It was kind of a fail, but what impressed me the most about Etsy was just by writing good product descriptions, with good product titles, using keywords in my descriptions, and properly tagging my products, I could get free traffic from Etsy. Like, people were finding my meme mugs organically on the marketplace, visiting my store, and I even generated a sale. This process only took a few weeks as well, so I basically got my Etsy store up and running, wrote all of these product descriptions, got my products live, and people found me within a week or two. So Etsy has gotten more competitive since then, but the bottom line is no other platform really is going to let you just host products on it, write some really good keyword descriptions and things like that, and actually get free traffic. So Etsy is very, very impressive on that front. And aside from that, Etsy also has a pretty robust and cool Etsy ad program. So you can pay for ads to kind of get sponsored listings on Etsy to get even more exposure for your store. So our opinion is that Etsy is much more beginner friendly in terms of getting exposure. So if you don't know anything about paid ads or SEO, or if you don't want to invest time into content writing or social media marketing, Etsy is definitely superior to Shopify. That said, if you're not intimidated by, creating a blog for your website or doing email marketing or kind of paying for ads to get people to your website, there's nothing wrong with starting a Shopify store. Just know it's easier to get exposure on Etsy than it is on Shopify. All right, so the fourth factor you can think about when picking between Shopify or Etsy is ease of use. So how much of a headache is it to actually manage a Shopify store versus your Etsy store? And so really one advantage of both of these platforms is they're both very, very beginner friendly. You don't have to know how to code to use either one of them. You don't have to set up your hosting plan or anything like that. You can pretty much pay for Shopify, set up your store and go, or just set up an Etsy shop and go. So there's really no, stumbling blocks you're going to run into on that front. Now, I will say that Shopify has more to learn, so that inevitably leads to a few more difficulties, especially when it comes to things like setting up your shopping cart or some of the back end like tax settings you have to tweak. But overall, again, you don't need coding experience, and they're both very, very beginner friendly. Etsy is also super simple. You basically publish listings, write your descriptions, add some images, and then you just respond to customers or manage your store. Like, it's really not rocket science to at least get up and running. So overall, we really can't pick a winner in terms of ease of use between Shopify and Etsy. Again, Etsy is easier to get exposure in, so maybe that makes it a little bit easier and more beginner friendly, but both of these platforms are definitely great if you've never dabbled in e-commerce before. All right, so the fifth and final factor we wanted to talk about in this Etsy versus Shopify debate is the integrations and apps you have for both these platforms. And honestly, integrations and apps you can add is where Shopify completely demolishes Etsy. I mean, the Shopify App Store has thousands and thousands of different apps you can download to help solve specific functions for your store. And so the App Store has all kinds of categories, including store design, marketing, sourcing and selling products, upselling, memberships, and customer service. So in other words, if there's a specific task you need to get done for your store, but Shopify can't handle it natively, there's probably an app out there that can do it. Now, the main downside of the Shopify App Store is that most apps aren't free, and many apps actually charge you monthly. And so while Shopify looks like it's $29 per month if you just stick with basic, you're probably going to need an app or two to get, the most out of your store. And so that $29 can quickly become $49, $79, $100 per month. And it only scales as you add more apps and as your store gets a little bit more complex. Now with Etsy, you have way fewer integrations at your disposal. I mean, you can add some pretty cool ones like print on demand ones, like you can add Printify or Printful or different POD providers to your store, but you're not going to have that robust app store like you'll find with Shopify. Now, Etsy actually has a Shopify integration and eBay integration, so you can sell on Etsy and then promote your products on other platforms as well. So it is very cool that way, but really the winner here is Shopify. You have way more control over your storefront, and a large part of that has to do with how many third-party integrations are available. All right, so that does it for some of the factors you should think about when choosing between Shopify or Etsy, but let's quickly cover some of the pros and cons of each platform and how you can decide which platform is actually right for your business. So in terms of Shopify pros, it's really that you have way more design control over your store. You have a ton of different integrations and apps you can add to your store. There are tons of different free and paid themes you can use, and overall you're going to be paying less in transaction fees than you would be with Etsy. As for Shopify cons, really the two main ones are that it's harder to get exposure on Shopify than Etsy because you're not selling on a marketplace. And the second one is that your monthly store costs are probably going to creep up on you as you add more apps and integrations. All right, well, what about Etsy? Well, really one of the main pros is that you're selling on a massive active marketplace, so you can get free traffic to your storefront that converts. Etsy is also very, very beginner friendly, and the Etsy ad program is another really cool way store owners can drive more traffic to their store. As for Etsy cons, the two main ones have to be that lack of design control and lack of freedom you have over how you run your store. And the second Con is just those steep transaction fees, especially if you're not on Etsy payments. All right, so who should use what platform? Well, in our opinion, Shopify is best if you kind of have some experience with SEO or paid ads or email marketing or social media marketing. You're willing to invest the time into, those channels, and you want more room for your online business to scale. Again, Shopify shines because it is easy to use, but it also gives you a lot of control. So if you just want, full control over your e-commerce store and you're willing to put in the time to grow it and you don't want to sell on the marketplace, Shopify is definitely for you. Now, if you sell anything vintage, handmade, or kind of artistic, even if it's a digital download, Etsy is really the place to sell. These types of products do very, very well on Etsy, and the fact that you're selling to this massive marketplace with millions of monthly buyers is a massive perk. So that's really what sets Etsy aside from the competition. And one thing we really wanted to mention as well before wrapping up this video is that you can sell on both platforms. Really nothing's stopping you from selling on Shopify and then listing those products on Etsy, or doing it the other way around. So you start your Etsy shop and over time you use its integration to publish products to Shopify. And I actually know a lot of store owners who do exactly that. Both platforms have a ton of strengths going for them. So what you can do is you can scale one of them up to a point where you think, okay, this is making great money. I feel comfortable with running this business. Where can I expand my business? Or what's another sales channel I could try to get even more customers? Probably the best way to approach it, you don't want to start one thing and then another immediately and you're kind of doing both things poorly. You want to get one right, get it up and running, get it making money for you and, getting sales every month, and then expand to other channels. So it might be Shopify's your first pick or Etsy's your first pick and then you switch. Whatever the case, I hope this video makes you make the right decision and helps you get more sales for your business. If you're starting an online business or if you have experience with either platform, we'd love to know about your experience down below and if you're choosing Shopify to sell on or Etsy. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope everyone has a fantastic day. We have a lot more e-commerce content coming on this channel as well, so if you want to like the video or subscribe or leave a comment letting us know what you think, it's always very appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Tom with Bunny Media. Hope you guys have a wonderful week and we'll catch you guys in the next one.